Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Lessons with Lion, hashtag the Disruptor series. And today I am so excited about my guest. I know I always say that, but I genuinely am excited for the guest that I have. This particular lady really inspires me because I feel like she's always herself, and you can see that in everything that she does. And you know, I'm always preaching about authenticity, and I feel like future brands that are successful are going to be all about authenticity. She's also beautiful, but I mean, come on, we always say that about women. She really is extremely talented. And as usual, I will not introduce her, she will introduce herself. So please tell us who you are.
Firstly, thank you for that massive whopper of an introduction. You're making me blush. And if you're watching the podcast, you can see me blush, but if not, you can just feel it. My name is Candice Modiselle, television presenter, theatre practitioner, actress, radio host, speaker by profession, entertainment extraordinaire, and lover of life and vessel of God's work.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, and I feel like that doesn't cover the full basis and scope of what I do. I'm also an educator, lecturer. A lot of things. I do a lot.
You do a lot, Candice.
I
And you
do.
know, some people say that if someone does a lot, they're not really skilled in anything. It's like master of, what is it?
A jack of all trades
Jack
and a
of all
master of
trades
none.
and master of none. What do you have to say about that?
I'm a professional scholar, so I'm always learning. I don't ever deem myself a master at anything because it seems as though, and it creates the perception that I've reached the ceiling in what I can learn and in my value proposition. I, by all means, pursue a level of excellence in everything, but it doesn't mean that things are lacking. Yes, will everything have my same level of focus, energy, and concentration? Absolutely not. There's 24 hours in a day, and I'm only one person. But at most, I will attempt to apply excellence. And if anything less, I'll try better.
What is excellence?
Excellence means the best version of myself at that time. But also, I believe if it's of service to other people in a way that I can impact them, transform or restore a level of improvement in their life, then that's my success. I think my success doesn't revolve solely around how people perceive my excellence. It's really about what lasting impact can I create and what legacy can I leave behind. It has nothing to do with how much is in my bank account, how many likes or retweets I have, or how many times I'm trending on social media. That has no relevance whatsoever. But it's really about how many lives are you transforming. And that for me is excellence.
You heard it from Candice herself. Excellence is more than just about how much you have in your bank account. It's really a
not about
holistic
me.
concept. You know, it's bigger than you. I love that. Because I think so many people struggle with that concept of excellence. We see people in designer labels, Instagram life, and we think that's excellence.
Yeah, we think that's success.
Yeah.
The car
We
you
think
drive is
it's
success.
Black excellence is having a Mercedes.
And I think there's an idiosyncratic meaning, understanding, and relationship that we have to excellence and success, because we all derive from different points and access points of growth, of even where we start the race is all very different. So our understanding of success already starts off from a different point. If my point of arrival, if I've already started the race 10 steps ahead from someone else, my success might be Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes.
Other people's success might be just getting through the day. And that for me is the goal that I plan on reaching. So there isn't an overarching umbrella term or umbrella understanding or definition or denotation or connotation of what success should and can be, but how you define it in your ordinary life and making it something extraordinary is completely up to you. And we can't take that away from you.
I love that. That's such a great point that she's made. So tell us, who was Candice as a little girl?
Oh my word. So firstly, I was an identity crisis in human form.
What does that mean?
So I grew up in a household with 3 incredible women. My mother, Grace Mutlalepule Modiselle, the one that came with the rain and the blessings. And she raised us on her own. We lost my father in 97. I was only 2 years old, Winter 6, Rafilwe 11. Which was naturally very difficult because now we have a mother who has to raise 3 girls on her own. And she had to carry the weight of the world and still be as graceful, if anything. And that's what nominal determination is, actually. She is grace personified. So it was kind of drawing the parallels between that and also being this young, vibrant, energetic black girl who did not, for the life of her, understand who she was. And no one really does at the tender age of 7, navigating through this life thing, being a black girl in a predominantly white environment. So now, and interestingly enough, I sounded like this for most of my life. So, ask Candice. I really had aspirations of being Britney Spears. I would do Britney Spears impersonations for my fellow classmates and elder school students, just for attention. I always felt like entertainment was something that I didn't necessarily choose, but something I was called to do, because from a young age, I was reading the back of the lotto ticket to my family in isiZulu, even though I couldn't for the life of me do it, because it made them laugh. So I was plotting, and I was kind of creating the dots that would later be joined at an early age, and creating, I was becoming the architect of my own narrative as a storyteller. From an early age, and you didn't notice that then, and it didn't seem like a lucrative career, but I was an entertainer by design. From that age, charismatic, always had the most to say, which has not changed, and I was unapologetic from a young age, and we lose that, and we become pacified when we're older. Life pacifies us, and it tells us that we're too loud, that we're too opinionated, but I had no filter either. I remember telling my mom's friend, oh my word, God bless his heart, I don't know where he is, Uncle Winston, but shout out to you. I remember saying to him, Uncle Winston, why do you have a strawberry head? Because his head was very peculiarly shaped.
Like a strawberry?
Like a strawberry, and I felt like bringing that into conversation. But that just tells you the kind of child that I was. But not to the disrespect or to the embarrassment and detriment of people around me. But it came from a point of pure intentions, innocence, and just love and joy. Joy. That's really what I felt I was. And to a large degree still am.
How did you maintain your certainty and awareness of yourself and knowing that this is your calling over time? Because I mean, the older girls get, the more we're told, we need to focus, we need to be a certain way. How did you maintain you?
I don't think I would have been able to maintain me if I didn't have the people around me that assisted me in that. Because it is those external influences that dilute who we really are, and those influences that have us questioning the integrity and the honesty and the innocence and the authenticity in who we are or who we create ourselves to be. I grounded my teachings, and my mother grounded my teachings in God, in faith, and in prayer. And in all of that, and me discovering who I was, and unearthing the identity and the talent and the calling and the passion of who I am, was all really immersed in having people support me and not necessarily question. Naturally you question people, we question intention, but I was never questioned around what my passion was, because it was so clear. And the bug bit me, and it was infectious, and it's the bug that bit my family. So my mom could not deny for the life of her who we really were, because we are living embodiment of who she is. So we are literally, like I always say, I sip from the fountain of excellence that my mother is, and we are droplets, we are branches of the vine that is my mother. So for me to be an entertainer and to be questioned, I'd be like, question yourself first, my girl. Before you think that I am not a storyteller, question who you are in the room.
Yeah.
And who are you to question who I am in the room, if you are that in every day, in every way, unapologetically so, with grace. In grace. You are grace.
Yeah.
So I dove into, and I was very persistent and intentional from a very young age. So from being a young performer on stage, having started in theatre in primary school, and again, I didn't know the path that I was creating, or the journey that I was forging ahead, or the journey I was embarking on. All I knew is that I loved what I loved, and it was not going to be taken away from me. But then you dabble around in, I wanted at some point to be a psychologist, an interior designer. I at 7 was relentless in wanting to be a trapeze artist.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm working in the circus and I'm going to be jumping back and forth. But ironically, that's what I do now for a living. I entertain people. I'm within a circus that is the entertainment industry, which may throw you around back and forth and you find your balance as you go. But I'm figuratively a trapeze artist, but literally an entertainer. So yes, there was the tug of war that came here and there, as we do, and as we discover and unearth who we are. But still, it was grounded in who I am as an entertainer, and my family facilitated that, supported that, questioned it when necessary, but they didn't at all question who I was and who I was called to be. And I will always love and respect them for that.
That's beautiful.
Shout out to them.
That's amazing.
Shout out to my
Not
sisters, my
everyone has
mother.
that privilege.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some other people aren't even questioned, they're told who they are. And let me say, not some, the majority of, because we didn't have, especially as entertainers, we didn't have prominent examples of success that were consistent in their elevation. There was always some form of demise, always some form of deterioration, always some form of defamation that took away from their call. Because as soon as you're on the cover of a newspaper, and I mean, we're afforded social media now where we get full scope of the story, full scope of the situation. But back then, you're on the cover of the newspaper for drug addiction, which may be completely far-fetched. Before you know it, you're not being booked for work, booked for jobs. And there is now the fall in the character arc, or the arc of who you are. And you are flawed. I mean, we're flawed by nature, we're flawed people. But once the fall comes, you're not booked, you're not working, you're broke. And that was the continuous struggling artist narrative in South Africa, and no parent wanted that for their own children.
I love that you spoke about the struggling narrative, because my next question is actually about that. So you studied, you studied your craft, and people say that the entertainment industry is not a lucrative industry for people.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to study, and what is the value of studying something in the creative field, in the arts? What's the value of that in South Africa and in Africa?
I don't think I had a choice. It's like I said, when something is itching, you gotta scratch. And it's almost like trying to go through the day ignoring that itch. That's what it would have been if I decided to choose anything else. It would be constantly ignoring the itch. That, oh, excuse me. Unfortunately, many people are confronted with that itch, and they don't have the privilege of being able to scratch it because their family swats their hand at any opportunity that they have to do that. On my side, however, in order to respect something, you need to fully understand it. You need to understand the mechanics of it. You need to be able to understand what it is to craft what you do and not just do what you do. To become a professional at that and to own that. I was also very tired of claiming to be an actress and have people saying, oh, so where do you act? What do you do? And to not be able to take ownership of it. Like, if I'm a doctor, or let's just say, Candice Modiselle at 17 years old decide, I want to be a doctor. I can't, for the life of me, imagine 5-10 years down the line, walking into a Linksfield clinic and saying, I'm a doctor. And then they're like, oh, where did you study? Where's your degree? And I don't hold anything. And I'm like, no, but I'm a doctor. Okay, but where have you practiced? No, I'm a doctor. I have no expertise and training in that. So how dare I do that with the entertainment industry?
I love that.
So how dare I claim to be a professional and I'm not saying go to an institution and get a degree or get a diploma or do a course in it, but at least respect the craft enough to learn the mechanics of what it takes to be there. I say that with presenters as well. I'm like, have you studied the craft of what it means to be a presenter? Do you know what it means to be a vessel of communication? It's not about the glamour. It's not about the glitz. It's not about the followers and the trends. The same with the radio host. The same with Lebo Lion doing a podcast. Do you know the mechanics? Do you understand your market? Do you understand your audience? And do you understand the mere grit it takes to be able to do that? And if the answer is no, why are you even there? Why are you even on the playing field if you don't know what it takes to train? Why are you even, you won't be picked for a squad if you don't have the technique. You won't be picked for a show if you don't have the zest for it, if you don't even have the love for it. You think love will carry you through? Come on, it's like a relationship. The same commitment that people have to a relationship, the same way you chase a relationship, the same way you chase a partner, that you mold yourself into all kinds of shapes to be seen and heard. Why do you not have the same zest for your career?
I love that you said that, actually, and I'm going to be a bit controversial right now.
Oh, okay.
We're in the social media age.
Oh, girl, we can go all day with that. How much time you got? I got to be on set, man, but I can call in sick for this.
So we're in the social media age, and there are lots of social media celebs coming out.
Yes.
Getting booked. You know, they have videos on YouTube and then they get booked.
Yes.
This person clearly hasn't studied the craft in the way that you're talking about.
Definitely.
So how do people now value that education and the studying of the craft when it looks like anybody who's got a phone and can get a following will book a gig?
Look, I will never be the person that feels like because I have a degree that I'm entitled to every job. I've worked for it, absolutely. I've very well earned my stripes, and we use this term paying our dues. For how much longer does someone need to pay their dues? Do I need to be 40 to be able to say, I deserve to be here? Absolutely not. There's a seat at the table for me, and I'm claiming it unapologetically because I've worked for that seat. I'm not gonna grovel or beg for that seat. Unfortunately though, I will always acknowledge the fact that I speak from a point of privilege. I'm privileged, and I am extremely and unbelievably blessed to be a working actress, because I know that I have counterparts, I have fellow classmates, I have people who are working in spaces that make no sense and they have no business being in, that were arguably the most talented storytellers, but because they have to fight for a space, they have to fight for a seat, they have to now bend over backwards and fight for it. Please understand, it makes no sense. And if you're listening, guys, please understand that there are people who have studied or been in the theater space from when they were 5. For as long as they could walk and talk, they were performers.
Yeah.
And then they go to Wits, they get a degree. They go for 4 years, they get their honors degree. They are still performers. And then they have to, stand in lines to audition with people who decided yesterday that they want to be an actress because they feel like they're pretty enough for it. They have the following for it. They have the... I kind of think that I would make a great actress. It's almost like the only thing that's ever made sense to you is now being reduced to a hobby for someone else. If it doesn't work out, it's cool. For them, if it doesn't work out, I have nothing else. Nothing else. And how is that supposed to feel for someone who's formed their entire identity around being a storyteller, and now it is the taste of the season? It's become seasonal for someone.
Yeah.
It's become table talk. It's become a conversation. It's become in my spare time. What? There are people that act in their spare time when I have committed 20, 40 years of my life. This is saying that the work that has gone into the Dr. John Gunners, the Can Timbers, the Zakes Dyes, the Barney Simons, the Ethel Fugards, their entire, oh my gosh, and how wrong of me to just name men. Oh my word, I'm so sorry for that. The late greats, Umam Nomsles, the Mam Nandi Nyembes, even the musicians, they were storytellers because it was a means of survival for them. To become incubators of information, to become people that archive South African stories. They opened the market theatre and they fought for their right to take the stage. And they created an industry. And now that industry is being reduced to how many followers we have. They went through tear gas. They fought rubber bullets. And now, all you need is 100,000 followers. So tear gas versus 100,000 followers is where we're at now. It's no longer about the story. It's no longer about who we are, South Africans, and archiving the narrative. That's crazy. It's crazy. And I understand it because, excuse me, I understand it because it's an industry. And an industry needs money. And money needs eyes. It needs people that are willing to buy in. And sometimes that's just people who are your followers. It's easier for them. But what happened to keeping the story alive? That's why it's so simple for international to take South African stories and say that, oh yeah, this is what South Africa is. This is what Africa is. Because we don't take our own story seriously enough to have integrity. And shout out to the producers that are still true to the craft. To the casting directors who are still appreciative of that. To the commissioning editors that respect that. I think it's so commendable for them to still keep the integrity of the story alive without having to forsake the honesty and the authenticity of who we are and should be as performers.
I like that. But I would like that because I'm a purist at heart, and I like industries that can merge the two, the social, digital, but also like the craft of it all. So I really like that answer. And just to add on to what you're saying, I think this next question is about how does then a young person now, just anybody now who wants to be an actor, who takes the craft seriously, how do they break through into the industry?
And that's why this conversation is always very difficult for me, because I feel like I'm representing both sides of the coin. Because I understand how difficult it is to break into the industry, but not only to break in, but to have staying power. We're living in a time where we can't survive solely off of one stream of income.
That's true.
That's all industries. That's all industries. That if you're not at top level management, and if you're not earning the biggest piece of the pie, and you are just a mere employee, I use that in inverted commas, that you need some other hustle. So that even though you studied, even though you worked hard, even though you have this beautiful list of experience and accolades, you still need a side hustle. And that is a story of a young, gifted, and Black South African. And I say specifically, the Black South African. I speak for the Black South African, about the Black South African, around the Black South African, because that is who I am, and that is who, and I can't take that away from me, because that is the journey that I've had to strive and struggle through.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate then that if I now do, for example, a presenter search, and I'm on to my 4th presenter search, and I'm always runner-up, or I'm always top 10. The best option I have is to use the oyster that is the internet. And I have to ground myself as the pearl, that when you open up, at some point, there is room for me, and I will be discovered. So when I say, and in light of the previous statement that I made, that it is unfair that I'm having to compete with people that have a certain number of followers, I'm speaking with the people that have a number of followers but aren't even committed to being there. It is a blessing for me. That's why I say I'm speaking from a point of privilege, that I have the craft, I've studied what I've done, I'm a working actress, but I also have the followership in my favor. There are people that have the following without the craft, without the love. There are people that have the craft without the following. So how do we navigate between that? Or now we have people that are accomplished or brilliantly seasoned performers that have to build up their following to get a seat at the table. How does that make sense? So the best option really is to become a social media savvy and a social media recognized personality in order to be cast. So it's almost like the system is working against you. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It really is difficult. And we have to make it work. But how? How do we do that? Brilliant storyteller, Masasa. Unbelievably brilliant storyteller. I'm not seeing her in enough shows. Brilliant presenter, Guhle Adams. Why does she need to be going to presenter search after presenter search after presenter search?
Yeah.
Mpumi Mlambo, presenter search after presenter search, in order for them to be recognized. It's crazy because the options, not the options, but the opportunities are there. They are there. And the platforms are there. But it's almost like and for as long as we're speaking amongst ourselves, it's going to be difficult because we need to be speaking to casting directors. We need to be speaking to producers. But when it comes to all these panel talks, panel discussions, we're not there. It's just actors. But there's only so much influence that we have. We can speak our brains and heads off about open up the industry. But if the people that are making these decisions are not there to have these conversations with us, we're literally just going to be idling back and forth.
That's true.
And the best option, again, is social media. Because we're seeing what it does. We see how you can become, strangely enough, what we thought could never be an overnight success, it can be. You have someone like Lasizwe, who has done exceptionally well. Exceptionally. We have people like Simon Panza, we have people like OK Wasabi, we have people like that. We have people like Spaga, who have really and we don't see the groundwork that they've done, but we assume that it's overnight because, oh my gosh, all you needed was a microphone and all you needed was a phone. Then we have people like Mushindiki, who is exceptionally talented at being able to do everything and all round. People like Farida. So then you have people who have the craft, we have people that understand what they're doing, and they have the numbers. You can't just have the numbers. It won't work because, yes, you might have relevance, but you won't have staying power. And staying power is what keeps you there.
That's actually one of my next questions.
Okay, I went right into it.
You just went right into it.
I'm
like
sorry.
You could just like present the whole podcast on your
Without
own.
ya.
Without me.
The Candice Modiselle. You better recognize it on the way.
So, how does an actress... Actually, I've got two questions. Maybe you can answer them together. I think they go together in some kind of way.
Sure.
How does a person carry themselves in a casting? And I'm asking this because I get these questions all the time, and I always tell people, I'm not an actor. I've never gone to a casting. I literally can't answer you. I know marketing, but I do not know, the industry of entertainment. It's not where I am. So how does a person carry themselves in a casting? And then how does a person have staying power in the entertainment industry? Because, now that we have social media, you can literally be relevant today and irrelevant next week because it moves that quickly. So how does a person have staying power?
Yes, the scope keeps changing. Because we always need to satisfy the palate of the audience. And with that, it will keep transforming because also, like I said, it's an industry. And an industry needs buyers. And the buyers are your audience and are your sponsors who want to see numbers. So I could tell you today what it takes to make it through a casting. I was a professional auditioner. Before I was an actress, I was a professional auditioner because I went to everything. They know me there at Grace Casting. They know me very well. In my first year of really going out into the world, I had an agent for the first time. I'd just completed my matric, and I'm in first year, and I'm studying, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go to castings, and I'm gonna get that big break. Wow, I call it, I've said in many interviews, I call it the 18 of 18. I remember going to 18 auditions, it was probably more. In 2013, I went to 18 auditions, heard 18 no's, some callbacks, but I remember not booking one of 18 jobs. Imagine how difficult that is for someone who believes that they have everything. I am charismatic. I'm a pretty young girl. I got straight A's in matric. What do you mean you don't want me? And the thing is, firstly, to prepare yourself going into an audition is important, firstly, because you need to understand that it's not personal. It's never personal. It really is always and will forever be business. Unless the casting director knows you and doesn't like you. Then, that's a story for another day, and that's on you, boo-boo.
Exactly.
I don't know that. I can't help you with that. But they know what they're looking for. It's almost like going onto a catalog or a menu, and you're seeing the picture of the burger you want. You've seen it. It's crystal clear. When you see that burger, you'll know it's the one you want. When it's on the table, you know. But if it's now ishotaka lettuce, it's not the sauce you wanted. It's not personal to the burger. It's just not the one you wanted. And you're always trying to get the one that fits closest to the perception of the burger you created in your head. Or at least the one that was on the menu. So that's what castings are like. Castings are also different because casting directors are different. They always have... That's why it's difficult for me to answer that question because they always have a different scope of what they're looking for. For them, it could be a looks thing, it could be a personality thing. It also depends on what it's for. Is it for a soapy, a film, an advertisement? Because also that becomes different. Who is the client? Who is the audience? That is, oh gosh, to be able to give adequate casting audition prep is difficult. It is difficult, and it would need to be a completely different conversation altogether, because there's so many different factors that feed into, and I know we have limited time, so but firstly it's to understand that it's not personal, and I took it personally in the beginning because I felt like the problem was me, but I didn't know how it was packaged, so I didn't know how I was selling it. I didn't know the contents, so I could not be content with my growth because I didn't know the content to understand what I was packing. So it was just,
how did you get to understand?
I was a door-to-door salesman that didn't know what was in there. A lot of rejection, and man, it's one of those infamous quotes I've said that rejection is a redirection for your elevation. So I had to literally go on the journey of re-understanding who I was, to open up, to get ugly, to see the ugly in me, to not have this inflated understanding of who I was, but to get down to the nitty-gritty of, okay, no one wants to cost you. What do we do? Do you drop out? Do you go into the corporate space as per suggestion? Do you back down? Or do you just make it work? And that's what I did. And then I went and I focused more on the craft. I focused more on, because you would rather have the opportunity and be prepared than be prepared and not have the opportunity. You'd rather be prepared without the opportunity, rather, than have the opportunity and not be prepared.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, the opportunity is not there. Let me be better prepared. So everything was just a preparation process for me. It was getting to know the craft, and crafting who I am as a performer. And then, once I felt like I was seasoned enough, I went back out into the world, went to audition. Before I knew it, I was getting booked. Booked for theatre productions, booked for short films, booked for feature films, and all of that. And people only see me on YoTV and Generation and think that,
it just happened.
Oh, she had it. Oh, she called her sisters up.
Yeah.
No, they do not see all the other work that went into it, unfortunately. But how to create staying power? Man. The perception needs to be first and foremost. How you enter the industry needs to be a journey understanding, not a destination understanding. Because once you focus on a destination, once you've gotten to that destination, you feel like you've arrived. And the arrival point means that, again, you've hit the ceiling. You cannot get better. You cannot improve. You're not open-minded enough to take criticism from people. Everything becomes personal. Everything is ego-driven. So firstly, shed the ego, because too much ego kills the talent. Shed it. Your ego will get you the job. That's great. It won't keep you the job. I cannot also emphasize enough how important respecting what you do, respecting who you are, respecting the people you engage with, and respecting the craft of what you do is so, so important. That is, and I can tell you, any single person that is still relevant in this industry, whether they be a sports presenter, a radio host, whether it be the person that rolls the auto cue, whether it be the person that is cleaning, anyone who has staying power is because they have respected the people around them and they've respected their work. And they've formed and maintained relationships through that respect. Because also, we are in a time, and it's not just entertainment industry, it's based on not what you know, it's who you know. The reason why you and I are sitting here together is because I met you and we formed a relationship where I'm like, oh my gosh, I dig her vibe, I dig what she's about, I've seen her work, it's highly reputable. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that you should respect your work. And you approach me with a level of respect. So if at any point I felt like I was being disrespected, we would not be having this conversation. And that's the same in any space. It's a space of referral, it's a culture of referral, it's a culture of suggestion, and it's a culture of networks. And people say, your network is your net worth. No, it's not that. It is the power and the consistency of your network that is your net worth. Because you've got a valuable people, but if the valuable people don't respect you or recognize who you are or even know what you're about, your network means nothing. And your net worth means nothing. Because if those relationships aren't of value, then what is staying power without relationships? And without valuable relationships?
Fire tweet, fire thread.
Oh,
What
you better
just
stop.
said, it's just fire. I mean, I wish I could like repeat this for people constantly. I love what you've said.
People just feel like they need the plug. And for every person, guys, I'm not being stingy, I'm not being rude, I'm not being a gatekeeper. When someone approaches me and says, Candice, put me on, your first approach to me is put me on. You haven't, and I'm not saying you need to earn my respect. I respect you just from acknowledgement, because that's what my mother taught me. To respect everyone. Uber drivers, security guards, the person at Chicken Licken that's serving me my hot wings. I will respect you. But if your first approach is to use me, I'm not saying kiss my feet. I'm not saying flatter me and then ask for favors.
Yeah.
I'm not saying butter me up and then toast me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. But at the very least, respect me enough to acknowledge me, to acknowledge who you are, to tell me, this is what I do, and I really need some guidance. I will never miss a moment to help someone in guiding. I am called to do that. God has purposed me for that. God has built me. He has separated me and elevated me for that and molded me for that. So who am I to rob people of access to information? But the first thing you want to come to me and do is say, Candice, put me on generation.
Just like that.
That can't be how we work.
No value proposition.
No value
nothing.
proposition, no respect for me. And then you turn around and say, these celebrities, they want to be the only people. You can't respect me as a person. So you're going to approach me as a celebrity? Nah. Before I'm anything, I'm a person. So approach me that way.
One of the trickiest things I've seen, because you spoke about respect, and ego, right? So at what point, I struggled with this in the beginning, at what point do you feel like your reaction is an ego-driven one? And at what point is it a respect-driven one? Do you get what I'm trying to say? When you're sitting with someone and they're saying something, you're going, but this feels offensive. Is it my ego speaking, or is it a respect thing?
I was so blessed to be exposed to a book that is called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Or Tolle, I don't know. I don't know. If Eckhart can't pronounce Modiselle, then we're fine. Exactly. Then we are okay. But that book speaks about ego, the pain body, and the subconscious. When you have a rein in on the subconscious and how the underlying and the undertones of who we are will boil under and bubble under, you will see when it starts to bleed over. You will see it, you will feel it, and you will understand it. It's almost like driving a car. When you shift into first gear, you can feel it. Into second gear, into fourth gear. If your boundary is at fifth gear and you feel like fifth gear is too much ego, when you're idling onto fifth gear, you can feel it. Or when you are on that clutch, you are pressing that clutch, but the clutch and the gear are not in conversation, you're going to stall. And you need to be able to stall, because once you've learned the mechanics of how to drive that car, then you understand how your ego works. So think of what goes into that, and learning the car. You are that car. So the car is the subconscious, and you need to be driven by something. I'm driven by my faith. And I make it very clear that my faith is not religion. So I can't say I'm driven by religion. I'm driven by my spirituality and my relationship with God. And anything that feels like it is glorifying me and not the gift that God has given me is ego-driven. Because it's driven by the flesh and the self. So, and I'm always having to go back and forth between that, because I get so insecure sometimes. Sometimes I don't feel pretty enough. So my place of comfort, and I reside in ego. And what's that? Okay, post a really pretty picture of yourself and then track the likes. And that's what validation thing, because I grew up being told, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, you're so talented. And at any point I doubt that. I'm like, okay, validation. What's best? Social media. So that same relationship that I formed with validation is how I tend to return back to the child that was so accustomed to hearing that she was talented. So accustomed to hearing. So if I'm on set and I feel like I screwed up all those scenes and I wasn't committed, and then I'll feel slightly insecure, or if I'm not getting the attention that I want from like a partner or from my family or something, which just happens. Maybe they are giving me attention and it's just a you thing. It could be just a you thing. I revert back to that. And it's still an ongoing tug of war that I have. It's still an ongoing...
it's a process.
A process
Yeah.
to shed myself of ego. But I also believe that once you live a life that is of service to others, it cannot be driven by ego. It cannot. It's because if it's driven by ego, it will be being of service to others and then telling other people that you're of service to others. People will never hear. I don't tweet about the people I help. I don't. You guys please find them. Tag me in them. Where I spoke and I said, oh my gosh, guys, you don't know, like the plug. Like there are people, I'll speak to you one-on-one and be like, listen, I was in a boardroom about this audition and I brought your name up. Do not be surprised. I would speak it to them directly. I'm not going to go on Twitter and say, guys, it's so important to help the industry grow. I just plugged mang, 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 mang. Or when they get that job, I'll say, or it's subtle. I'll be like, I'm so grateful that I was in that room to bring your name up. That is service that is ego-driven. It is not build others and increase the level of morale amongst humanity.